Hey everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
It is the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. I'm CJ Baumgartner, joined as always by Ian Rivers, a professional podcast operation, are we, as we get ready here for this one. Ian, let the CCHA playoffs begin. I am ready, and not only because the way the regular season have been going, we just kind of needed to get the extra juice of the postseason, but it was a pretty darn good weekend for Bemidji State University, throwing their own shade into the chaos. That was the final week of the CCHA season.
Yeah, I mean, hockey was good. The Beavers had a good weekend themselves on the men's side. And the whole conference was kind of entertaining. You know, I've been listening to, whether it's the CCHA Reporters Corner, they did all of their season previews. And at the end of each episode, they asked everybody that they brought on, decide the top four for us. And everybody had such a difficult time projecting the top four. And guess what? It actually came true. Like, it's the only sucky part about it is the Beavers couldn't keep themselves closer to that race because, I mean, it came down to like the last 4 minutes of the last two games were being played. It was Bemidji State and St. Thomas. It was Mankato and Northern Michigan. And we still didn't know where 5 of the 8 teams were going to be playing come, Mason Cup playoff time until Minnesota State finally was unfortunately able to wrap it up. And that's the difficult part about this conference is for people like us, there's not too many teams besides the Beavers that you want to see hoist the trophy. We talked about it last week with Jared. I do think that Minnesota State, in my opinion, is the slightly lesser of three evils with Tech and with St. Thomas. Both have their reasons, but I hate to do it, CJ. Chargers reference. I don't care if the Chiefs win another division title. I'd rather see the Chiefs do it than the Broncos. It doesn't change my opinion of what the Chiefs are, what Patrick Mahomes is. It's just another, ring in the belt loop or whatever you call it. It's just another trophy for Mankato. It sucks. I don't like seeing it. Oh, back where it belongs. It's like, screw you guys. Like, it belongs anywhere but
my mouth
Mankato.
a little bit.
But at the same time, it's like, well, do I want to see St. Thomas win it and take it to another conference and say, oh, now I get to say, hey, look, St. Thomas, you couldn't win in the CCHA. Now you're going to go somewhere else thinking that you have a chance to win. Like, no, you couldn't win anything here. So now it's become Operation Stop them from winning a Mason Cup, and then they will officially have no hardware to take with them to the NCHC. But regardless, yes, we should talk a little bit more about the series played out at the Sanford Center between the Beavers and the Tommies.
Speaking of St. Thomas not being able to take home any hardware, part of it was because Bemidji State took majority points on the weekend.
Well, and that has something to do with it too, right? Like you, regardless of who you're playing, you want to be responsible for keeping them from lifting the trophy on your ice. The trophy was in Houghton this weekend. It wasn't in Mankato or in Bemidji, but should it have been, you don't want the Tommies to be the ones lifting that cardboard cutout of a trophy on your home ice, right? Like that's what you want to prevent from happening. And you did with a pretty solid weekend against St. Thomas, a 3-1 win on Friday night that didn't necessarily dash the Tommies' dreams because of the way that the rest of the conference fell that night. But it was a great game from the start. The Beavers go shorthanded. And guess what? Kirkland Irie, the captain, scores his first goal of the season.
Nobody feels better than Ian Rivers about this.
I was jumping up and down. Like I pushed my wife aside off the couch and I'm just jumping. My dog gets riled up, of course. And I'm like, and this is like, I don't know. I don't want to make it seem like he's a, senior game manager that just got some injuries, strap the skates on. Like he's a talented player. He led the team in points last year. And I think that's why it's got to just be a big sigh of relief for him, for the team. Good for him to get his goal, first goal of the season for Kirkland Irie, and a shorthanded one at that. Jackson Panzer almost compounded on that with a shorthanded goal of his own, like, I don't know, a minute later, if not less. either way, Oliver Pierre adds to the scoring. Who else? In the second period, it's 2-0 for the Beavers. And then they give up their own shorthanded goal to the Tommies, but they're able to get a goal about 10 minutes through the third period, courtesy of Riley Funk. Made a good move getting to the net, put it past the goaltender. Man, I can't remember. I'm blanking on who played for them in net on Friday. Musser played Saturday. Great win. I mean, everything you wanted to see from this team, a little bit of offense, against a pretty good team in St. Thomas. That was the one thing that you didn't take away from the Minnesota State series was, you only scored one goal. And in this game alone, you scored 3. Granted, the next night, you scored 1 less, you scored 2. Game ends in a tie Saturday night. I thought it was just as good of a performance overall. I mean, unfortunate that you couldn't take a clean sweep of the Tommies and really, kick them to the curb to the NCHC, having pretty much owned them over the course of their time outside of that one series this year in January where they swept us. I think it's been pretty lopsided for the Beavers. Now, of course, a lot of that's transitional years for St. Thomas coming to Division I, which maybe isn't fair, but I don't care. Nathan Pilling scored in the first period. Max Vig and Von Juhas with a power play goal to make it 2-1 Beavers, and then Cage Sturger got a goal in the third period to tie it for the Tommies. Game went to overtime. I thought there was a little bit of a questionable officiating towards the end of regulation and in overtime. But at the end of the day, I mean, it didn't really matter for the Beavers. Like maybe if you award a penalty shot for the Irie hook that I do think should have been called. I can't believe it wasn't.
That was
called.
Insane, dude. It was insane. Like I was jumping up and down. I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I know when something doesn't look right, and to see that happen and just go unchecked, I get it. It's towards the end of a period and you got it, like whatever, but that doesn't matter. If it's a penalty, it's either a penalty or it isn't. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, the only thing that would have changed, like if the Beavers score there, they're playing St. Thomas this coming weekend because St. Thomas falls below Augustana and they're now the 3 seed. Augustana's the 2. So all it would have done is flip-flop those 2 teams. Maybe you say, okay, well, we took 5 points off of Augustana or off of St. Thomas this weekend. That's a better matchup for us. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, you played well against St. Thomas this weekend, but look what happened the last time you had to go to, to St. Paul. It didn't really go that well. Of course, it's a different team than we played a couple months ago, but yeah, now it leads to a matchup with Augustana. I don't know. It wraps up the regular season, which feels a little disappointing. We've talked about it ad nauseum, I'm sure, but that's what the playoffs are for. We bring it up a lot, I think, on the show. 2022, 2021, was it? Where the Beavers really had a disappointing stretch towards the end of the year, and they were able to cover that up and mask it with a deep playoff run to the Mason Cup championship game against Mankato, where they unfortunately, of course, had the
that was the game we do not speak of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that run at the end of the season was still so good that people often forget that you had a 6-game losing streak right up until like the final series of the year where you swept a like brand new St. Thomas team to go into the playoffs as the 3 seed. Winning at the end of the year covers up a lot of bumps. Even last year was pretty disappointing. They were the 7 seed in the CCHA last season, but they beat Augustana when they got to the first round, and it covered up and it masked a little bit of that ugly kind of season that came before it. So I don't know. I have a decent amount of confidence, and there's a number of reasons why. You just allowed 3 goals to one of the hottest offensive teams in the conference this weekend. And the weekend before that, you allowed 1 goal to, I'm not going to say the hottest offensive team in the conference, but, they're a good team. They just won the McNaughton Cup again. So 4 goals in 4 games is a pretty good defensive record. Max Hildebrand is clearly playing the best hockey of his young career so far. These last 4 games have been nothing short of phenomenal for him. He had a huge breakaway chance in overtime. I believe the Tommies had a breakaway chance, maybe for sure under a minute and a half. I swear, left in that overtime period, and he came up with a huge stop 1-on-1 I can't remember who had the chance for the Tommies, but I mean, he's the big reason the Beavers, well, technically didn't actually get them any more points, but they tied the game. They didn't lose in overtime because of him. So overall, I do think the Beavers have a decent chance to make some happenings in this tournament. They have a decent matchup in Augustana. CJ, you talked about before the show, Augustana hasn't proven anything, in this league. They haven't won a playoff series. Not that matters too much, because eventually that will cease to be true. And it very well could be this weekend, because they also have a really, really good goaltender, and a goaltender that might win CCHA goalie of the year, and he might be a Richter finalist. So it's going to be a tough matchup for sure, but I don't think you look up and down this league and see a ton of easy matchups, and that's part of the reason it's been such a deep league. So it kind of helps and it kind of hurts, because there's not a real good or bad opponent that the Beavers might have been playing.
Yeah, exactly. And you talk about that, the defense, the goalkeeping of Augustana, and not only that, because when you look at the way that their team is set up, when you look at shot percentage, when you look at power play percentage for this team. This is another thing of special teams, I should say. When you talk about the Augustana Vikings, when you look at their power play percentage, they're tops in the CCHA with a 22.1% power play. Bemidji State sitting at 7th with a 19%. When you look at their penalty kill, Augustana's the best with an 88.5% penalty kill. Bemidji State sitting 6th in that spot. The other thing about Augustana, they don't take penalties. They average about 3.2 a game, and their penalty minutes are just under 7 minutes a game. So this is going to be one where you're going to have to win it straight up. And again, not that the Beavers have been amazing on the power play or anything, but still just something to keep in mind. Another thing is faceoffs. When you look at the faceoff win percentage, this is an area where Augustana has struggled. They've only won 48% of their faceoffs, which is 8th in the conference. Only Northern Michigan is worse. But like you said, Ian, this is a team that does not allow a ton of shots per game. And this is a team that defensively is tops in the conference in goals allowed, 2.03 goals per game. That's tops in the CCHA. Bemidji State sitting 5th at 2.82. So it's going to be, if you're a fan of 2-1, 1-0 hockey games, this might be the series for you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we talked about it the last time that we played this team, which was a long time ago. It was before the winter break, when this team was pretty much an entirely different hockey team than what we've been seeing lately. This is one of the best special teams. It is the best special teams team in the CCHA, like you said. Power play tops of the conference and penalty kill tops of the conference. But the Beavers have kind of always succeeded 5-on-5 this year. They had a little bit of a stretch during the middle of the season where their power play was buzzing a lot. And then, of course, they had the stretch after the break where their power play was ice cold and their penalty kill was ice cold earlier in the season. But I think that, you're just going to want to keep this 5-on-5. Try to play smart hockey. I do think the officiating changes a little bit when you get to the postseason. So hopefully it's called a little tighter, like, that maybe, or would that be called a little looser? Like maybe they're not calling as many penalties. And you can maybe get away with a little bit more, or you get away with stuff that you weren't before. But yeah, staying out of the box is going to be key. This is a really good power play and a really good penalty kill. Beavers have succeeded in 5-on-5 all season long. And I really just think this series is going to come down to goaltending. Can Max Hildebrand keep up his hot streak of play that he's had going? I believe he just won Rookie of the Week again in the CCHA for the second time after a really good performance. I mean, St. Thomas is averaging 3.5 goals per game this year in CCHA play. They got 3 goals, period, against Max Hildebrand and the Beavers this weekend. So at the end of the day, Hildebrand's been on his game. I think defensively it's been a lot better. That's been a big part of why there really hasn't been as many of those ugly breakaways that I was talking about a couple weeks ago, where, it just, the goalies were getting left out to dry for that, 5-week stretch in, the January and early February stretch of the season, where it felt like every period there was like 2 odd man rushes at least for the opposition. And it hasn't been happening at that rate at this point. So I'm excited to see. And then, of course, the biggest task for the Beavers offense is going to be breaking the best defensive team in the CCHA, potentially with Josh Kotai and a pretty good Augustana defense, and probably doing it without Adam Fleming. It looks like he's probably not going to be suiting up to skate this weekend, which, again, I don't know if I'm super shocked by that. At first, the reporting seemed to suggest that he was almost certainly done for the season. And then, we've had little teasings here and there of, well, it's not for sure. We're letting it, we'll see where it goes. But it doesn't look very promising. Every weekend you win is just a little bit of a better chance that Adam could come back and join the team. So I think that's a motivation enough, right, for this team to continue to win. But hey, he's the player that scored that overtime Game 3 goal on Sunday last year. So it's going to be tough, but the Beavers are playing some of their best hockey right now. And, it's difficult to say this because it's kind of like that John Morant thing from a couple of years ago where it's like, well, he's a very talented player, but for whatever reason, the Grizzlies just like had a better record when he wasn't playing with them. So I don't necessarily think it's a better team without Adam Fleming on the ice, but regardless, they seem to be playing some of their best hockey when it matters most. And I'm excited. I don't know if I have an official prediction right now, but I think the Beavers have a decent chance. Last year we kind of picked them to be feisty in the playoffs just because Augustana was so new. I kind of think like it's the same thing, but I think that the top of the conference is a little bit worse than it was last year, like as an aggregate. Not necessarily because, like, if you look at the NPI, all those teams are kind of scratching and clawing and fighting their way to get in the national tournament. But I don't know. It just feels a little bit more balanced this year at the top. And I don't think there's one team in particular that the Beavers are super scared of right now. Regardless, you just got to take it one game at a time. And hopefully we see some results this weekend in Sioux Falls, just like last year.
Yeah, it's going to be a very fun weekend, and this kind of is shaping up for a fun CCHA playoff series. I'm excited to see where this thing lies for the Beavers. Ian, official prediction. What are we thinking? We got Beavers in 3 till it ain't?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. It feels a little bit of a homer pick, and it's like,
but what the heck? You're not coming to the Beaver Banter.
It's the Beaver Banter podcast, right? Like, it's so difficult because I do think that the goaltending has been outstanding over the last 4 games, and that can really carry you in the playoffs, man. It can really carry you. I think the Beavers get it done in 3. I think that they kind of surprised people again. I think it was Bowling Green, a few times, and Ferris State, 3-4 years ago. They had a 3-year run where they like upset a team every year in the first round, and that maybe seems like what the Beavers are doing. They're playing their best brand of hockey right now. Augustana coming off a bye week. Who knows where they're at? They're probably a little frustrated. They didn't take care of business a little bit more against, St. Thomas, even though they kind of did. They jumped themselves into this, the spot that they're in right now. But I think the Beavers in 3 is going to be my prediction. Last year I said that they were going to, I said they were going to win on Friday and then lose Saturday, Sunday. So I'll say that they win Friday, lose Saturday, and it looks bleak because it was a pretty bad loss. And then they're going to come back out and put up a fight on Sunday and take it in 3.
Yeah, I think I'm right on there with you. I don't got anything else to say. Beavs in 3 till it ain't, basically. So, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the CCHA. Quickly, before we move on from men's hockey, is there any other series, just one series that sticks out to you with the rest of the matchups here?
I'd have to say, just given everything that happened this last weekend, it feels like a bit of a cop-out, but to go straight from that Tech Bowling Green series we just got into another series of Tech versus Bowling Green, especially with all the complaining about tiebreakers online. Don't get me wrong, like, as much as I agree, like, sometimes tiebreakers can suck. Like, they don't necessarily, like, always... Tech and Bowling Green took majority points, but because it's an unbalanced tiebreaker, yada, yada. But I do think that the argument is a little bit cheap when you say, well, it's been the issue. The tiebreaker's been the same since the beginning of the year. You didn't have a problem with it then. It's like, Well, because I didn't know it was going to matter then. Like, why would I complain about it at the beginning of the year? Then you would tell me, well, why are you complaining about it now? Wait until the end of the season.
Right.
Regardless, that was pretty funny to watch, fall this past weekend. And I think that's probably my favorite series of the weekend. I'll be very curious to see how Ferris State matches up with Minnesota State. This is insanely impossible to do because I'm the biggest hater of this university, of course, and they just won another McNaughton Cup. I think that Minnesota State is like the biggest frauds, dude. I think that they're the biggest frauds. And unfortunately, I don't know if Ferris is actually going to be able to expose them as those frauds. And then, then it's going to be maybe on Bemidji's shoulders if, again, we upset Augustana and we might have to go play in Minnesota State again. So I don't know if I should even be saying this, but that series is interesting. They did not play their best brand of hockey against Northern Michigan this last weekend. They kind of left it down to the wire. But yeah, I mean, it's the CCHA, man. Every series is at least a little bit interesting. But yeah, Tech Bowling Green is going to be one that's definitely up on the laptop as the Beavers are on the main screen this weekend. Because that was a really good series to watch last weekend as well.
It's going to be great. We're going to talk about women's hockey, men's basketball, women's basketball having their seasons come to a close, and talk about the spring sports, a huge weekend for baseball, all that coming up. But first, a word from Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. Once a Beaver, always a Beaver. The Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is here to keep that green and white pride going strong for its 50,000 graduates around the world. From scholarships that open doors for students to events that bring BSU alumni and friends together, you can get connected, give back, and leave a legacy at Bemidji State. Whether you're a proud BSU grad, a local supporter, or you just love cheering on the Beavers, come be a part of the action at bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation's proud supporters, we hope, of the Beaver Banter podcast. They had their day of giving a couple weeks ago. That was really fun. Had Micah on the podcast. Go back and listen to that episode and hear some Beaver trivia where I'll be honest, I took some fat L's. So go back and watch and go back and listen to that wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube to check out the Beaver Banter podcast. Okay, Ian, women's hockey has their season come to a close, but I will say on Saturday, they went out kicking and screaming. Let's put it that way. They did not lay down and have that season come to a close. Yeah,
it was a pretty difficult matchup against the number one team in the country. Friday night kind of went as you expect for these things. 7-0 loss in LeBron Arena against against Wisconsin. It's a team that just got back, 4 Olympians from a team that won the U.S. gold, and there was, I believe, a Canadian on the team as well, if not more. But yeah, Saturday, very, very encouraging. A Saturday of chaos among the WCHA. I believe Minnesota State upset Minnesota Duluth on Saturday. St. Cloud State upset Minnesota on Saturday. And Bemidji State was able to claw their way to an overtime period with Wisconsin. Haley Armstrong, it was 0-0 heading into the second period, and Haley Armstrong gets the first goal of the game, courtesy of Morgan Smith. And the Beavers are leading, and it was short-lived, a couple minutes before Wisconsin tied it, and then eventually at the end of the period went on the power play and got a goal to make it 2-1. You're thinking, shoot, okay, well, the wall broke, the dam broke, shoot. And then Morgan Smith gets a chaotic goal at the end of regulation to tie it with an extra skater, I believe, and sends it to overtime against the number one team in the country, the number one seed in the WCHA playoffs. And unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Layla Edwards, a gold medalist, scores the game-winning goal for Wisconsin. So they win in 2. But, hey, I'm not going to lie, not a huge moral victory guy, but that feels like a pretty good game for a Beavers team that's punching above their weight. Let's be honest. Wisconsin is not fair in women's hockey. Like, you should almost have some sort of a salary cap. Not that they're actually out here. I mean, maybe they are nowadays, paying players. But it's crazy how much talent they have on the team. So credit for the Beavers women's team getting to that spot. I think a decent season, a couple of highlights in there. Obviously, the win against Mankato just about a month ago in Grand Rapids was awesome. Maybe didn't end the way you'd like, that St. Cloud series. You wish you could have gotten a split or something, played a little bit more competitively in that series. But at the end of the day, it's a tough conference, and just under second-year head coach Amber Frickland, I do think that there is reason to believe the team improved. Same win total as last year, but let's see what we can do. Year 3, maybe we expect a little bit more of a jump forward. I think that there was clear signs of, good coaching and good players on this team. So we'll see. We'll see what we can do in year 3 under Amber Frickland. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people would be like, well, what are you doing? Looking forward to another 6-win season? I kind of think that there's reason to believe that it could be closer to double digits next year. I'm not going to lie to you.
Right. I think that there is momentum in this program. And even though it doesn't look like it on the ice, and, there's still goal differential things, there has still been just ways that these games have looked that haven't been great all the time. But that being said, I think you got to start somewhere. You have to pluck yourself out. And I think Bemidji State has showed enough good players to at least know that there's something here to continue building with. And I think that as long as Coach Frickland is in place, I'm confident that Bemidji State women's hockey is going to get better and better year in and year out. And again, expectations are different. And we've said this all year long, but how different would the Beavers look as a team if they played in any other conference? So that's not to make excuses, but it is to say that they play in a very tough hockey conference. And just because the wins haven't shown up like you would expect in another conference doesn't mean that the Beavers aren't getting better. Doesn't mean that this program isn't getting put in a better spot. These things just take time. And with Coach Frickland and with how well respected she is in hockey circles, as long as she's on the sidelines for this team, I'm going to feel confident about the direction that they're going in.
I agree. Looking forward to the future.
Looking forward to it. So let's wrap up our seasons for men's and women's basketball. And look, this isn't something that we say lightly, but mistakes were made.
Yeah.
We're communications majors. We were not mathematics. So
I think that makes it worse because this is like a clear communication issue that we had. Listen, especially
and me, who also didn't read it,
completely blanked on the fact that the playoffs are structured differently this year, or maybe I should say they're not structured differently this year. This year we picked up Jamestown, right? The NSIC did. So I just assume, like an idiot, that it's going back to the way it was in the past, where divisions rule all. You got to get a top 6 seed in your division. Well, lo and behold, if you scroll to the bottom of the standings page, it does notify you that Jamestown is ineligible for the NSIC tournament, which means that they were going by the overall standings of the conference and not the NSIC North Division standings, which means that it was a totally different number that the Beavers men's and women's teams were chasing. So for the last month, very unprofessionally, we've been chatting about the numbers the Beavers had to get to, and that it was all right in front of them with the North coming up. Didn't end up getting into the playoffs for either of those teams. So a little bit unexpected, obviously, for me coming out of left field. So I apologize to the basketball teams for mistaking the race that they were in with something that it wasn't. But either way, the seasons came to an end. Unfortunate for both that they were not able to make the postseason. Look at it from the women's perspective. Steam just kind of ran out at the end of the year. It looked really good, up until about February. And then, man, that run through the back half of the NSIC North towards the end of the year just did not go well for them. I do believe they won their last game of the season against Crookston, but it was too little too late at that point. Similar to the men kind of picked things up at the end. The last couple of weekends, I believe they got two or three wins in the last couple of weekends of the season. But again, just too deep of a hole to, I mean, 3 wins in the last 5 games for the men's team, University of Mary, Northern State, and then ending the year on senior day with a win over Crookston. But again, because they were not just competing with teams from the NSIC North, but also from the NSIC South, were not able to make the postseason. This team, I think, does boil down a little bit to Tate Olson's injury. Like, you hate to speculate like that, but this is a pretty close team. I mean, you look at the amount of losses by less than 10 points, and it's hard to quantify exactly what one player does for you. But, like, this is a team that had a first-team all-NSIC player in John Pekarich, which congrats to him, by the way, and then a second-team all-NSIC player in Henry Shannon. Is it junior? Or the third? Henry Shannon.
Third.
Yeah, the third.
Yeah.
Both phenomenal seasons. By the way, I believe Cassandra Karen had NSIC second team honors for the women as well. So congrats to her. But yeah, this is the men's team, man. They had some talent on that roster, and Tate was thought of as the best player on the team coming into the year. You know, so if he can stay healthy, who knows, you know, what happens to this team. Maybe they're not winning NSIC titles, but you know, they might at least have their way.
Do they pull a few more out, and do they maybe sneak into the playoffs?
Playoffs, or even, you know, does it really, you know, rejuvenate this team? Because maybe, you know, it's hard to say, but how many of those 11 straight losses are just because momentum is just spiraling, you know? And if maybe you get a win in the middle there, maybe it doesn't turn into 1 win out of 11 games, but it turns into 3 wins out of 11 games. You know, it's impossible to say. So we'll see. There has been some speculation. We haven't confirmed anything. You know, Tate Olson, I do believe, would technically be eligible for like a medical red shirt. So we'll have to pay attention to that over the summer. Maybe we can get some insiders on this and see if that's something that is potentially, because he's been missing for a very, very long majority of the season.
I mean, it was like the second game of the season, like one of the first, because it was against UMD. Like, it was back in November, basically. Mm-hmm. So that this happened. So it's not like, I mean, he pretty much missed the whole season. I'm not sure 100% what the NCAA guidelines are for that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you've seen people get a red shirt for less, a medical red shirt for less.
Yep. So something we'll be monitoring. And if we hear anything, we'll let you know. Henry Shannon III will not be back. He's a graduate student this last season, but you know, you run it back with John Pekarich and Tate Olson and see if that you know, 1-2 combo. And then, you know, you got some decent pieces on this team. You know, Isaac Sieverts is going to be coming back hopefully next year. I thought he was pretty good in stretches over the course of the season. So, you know, if you can put those two on the court and John Pekarich, God forbid, takes another leap from junior to senior year, like, I don't know. Again, who's to say what the Tate Olson injury did for this team, but I think that there's still reason to be a little bit excited going into next year if we see Tate Olson return to the Beavers with the medical red shirt, which again, not confirmed. So I guess we'll have to see on that stretch. But John Pekarich coming back,
the NCAA will make a great ruling that will always be consistent, and we'll always know what to expect.
Right. Hey, if Boshi and Masick can keep, you know, Duke away from John Pekarich this offseason in the transfer portal, then I think we're good to go. You know,
I think so.
We can keep him from Durham or Chapel Hill, maybe, or maybe even East Lansing if we can keep them away from the Spartans. Then I think we'll be fine next year.
Then I think we'll be okay. But
as they say, second Chargers reference, as long as we got 10, but in this case it's 11. As long as we got 11, we got a chance to win any game, and that's John Pekarich.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
That's what you guys say about 9, right? As long as you got 9, you're in any game, right?
Yeah. Except when you're playing a team that's really bad, you are in any game. Yeah, exactly. You're
talking about 5 straight wins at the end of the season, Minnesota Vikings?
Don't look at how he left 2 of them. Couldn't finish 2 of them. And then the other 2 wins were against teams that fired their defensive coordinators. But yeah, no, everything's right. I mean, trust me, I'd rather have 11 than 9 in this situation right now. So Shout out to Pekarich. Shout out to the Brainerd native. All right. Let's wrap up women's basketball here. I know you mentioned Karen getting those honors, and this was a team that had some momentum early on, but just overall as the grind of the season went along, they just couldn't quite keep up.
Yeah, exactly. It just unfortunately fell off towards the end, where you want to be playing your best basketball towards the end of the season. Unfortunately, this team was sputtering at the end, lost a couple close games, and it really just fell off towards the end of the season. A couple of big losses to Jamestown by 12, Northern State by 18, Minnesota Moorhead by 36. Yeah, just difficult end of the season for this team that we were hopeful could make their way back into the NSIC tournament. But I do think, again, good signs this year. You talk about women's hockey having an upward trajectory. This was one of the more promising seasons we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years out of this team, especially since the kind of COVID era set this program back from where it was, pre-COVID. So I'm excited for next year for all of these teams, as I am. I mean, I'm a huge Beaver fan. I'm sitting here talking, what is this, our 4th season of the Beaver Banter podcast, CJ? Like, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't a sicko for all things Bemidji State. So maybe I'm an unfair person to ask about the expectations of the women's hoops team next year, but yeah, I think that they can probably win a national championship if you're asking me. If you're asking me to be reasonable, I think that they can win a national championship next year.
Take that, haters.
Yeah.
Take that. So,
and if I'm wrong, I was just trolling.
Well, and if I'm right, well, what I'm right. I predicted it. And
Never
if I'm wrong,
it's just early.
And if I'm wrong, it's just, we're just throwing it out there.
Dude, it's a podcast, man. We're goofing around.
Say it. Yeah.
We're goofing around, man.
I'm just, if you ever listen to a podcast where they get called out on something, their first response is, well, I'm just asking the question. It's like, yeah, but what's your take? Well, I'm just asking the question. But that being said, if I'm correct, I will own it as if I was correct. But if I'm wrong, it's, somebody had to say it,
We're going to get sound bites next year of where Ian was right.
Yeah.
Like Colin Cowherd style. And we're never going to have a where Ian was wrong. We're not going to hold me accountable.
The file doesn't exist. It's
yeah. Ironically, I probably won't end up actually getting to use the where Ian was right sound drop as I'm wrong more often than not.
Ian's only right on his Chargers bits.
Yeah, sometimes. And I can get off a banger tweet every once and then. That's about all I've got.
Hey, Ian was running the Beaver Banter account a lot this weekend, and let me tell you, he put out some bangers. That men's hockey tweet about Minnesota State was pretty darn good with the illusion of free choice.
And guess what? It was 100% correct because they won, and I was depressed. So it wasn't going to end well. It's like watching the same movie over again and expecting a different result. It's the definition of insanity.
And yet here we are.
It is. It's like Jared Robedo, Bemidji Pioneer. We had him on last week. If you're unfamiliar, go listen to that episode. It was awesome. He did say, like, as weird as it is to say Minnesota State's in 5th place, like they're probably the favorite just because of the opponent they face and of the opponent. Like St. Thomas played Bemidji. Bemidji's better than Northern Michigan. They're playing better right now. And I can't believe that it actually happened. I can't believe that Minnesota State actually did win the CCHA outright. Maybe I would have been happier if Minnesota State and St. Thomas tied, because then it's like, well, neither of them are truly happy, but then both of them are a little bit happy. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Again, I was correct. It's all depression. It's all terrible.
Where Ian was right.
Yeah, where Ian was unfortunately right is that it will suck watching Minnesota State win another trophy. Yeah.
Where Ian was right. Coming? Where Ian was right. The atrocities he would commit if the Cows lift another Mason Cup. Yeah. Dang it. Darn it.
I say it's stupid because I say it every year. It's like, oh man, maybe I'd rather see Tech win it this year than Minnesota State. But then when it hits the fan, I'm cheering for Minnesota State over Tech. I'd rather see them win it than Tech Because it's funnier that Tech just keeps choking all of these opportunities to win.
Right.
the Mason
Minnesota
Cup.
State's already cocky. What's that going to do? Their fan base is already cocky. What are you going to do about that? But seeing Tech will have to wallow a little bit is.
I think it was Juddy Roll of the Purple Cow podcast that I'm chatting Mavs. He put out a tweet after the game, and he said, if you think about it, we're actually helping the Chasing McNaughton pod, because now they don't have to change their podcast name because they're still chasing the McNaughton. And I'm like, okay, that's a banger. That's a banger.
A good one.
All right.
Unfortunately, you gotta hand it to him.
Yes, you unfortunately do have to hand it to him. But yeah, as I'm saying, this is all a tangent, by the way, that we went off on because I predicted that the Beavers women's basketball team would win a national championship next year. So don't hold me to that. But I am going to be rooting for it to happen. So there you go.
Exactly. Let's talk.
Should we thank our sponsors again, CJ?
Yes, let's do that. And then we're going to talk spring sports.
Yeah, I'll reset here by talking about our sponsors at the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. And then we'll jump into the spring sports and restart this professional podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be a part of the team behind the teams at Bemidji State? Join hundreds of dedicated fans when you donate to Beaver Athletics and help BSU pursue its next championship. Your gift can power your favorite program, establish a scholarship for a student athlete you get to meet, and so much more. Every dollar brings the Beavers closer to raising another trophy. You can add to the proud tradition of success at Bemidji State. So don't wait. Give today at bsualumni.org/Beavers. That's bsualumni.org/Beavers.
All right, Ian, as we hit the reset, let's talk a little baseball. And boy, was it a good weekend for the Beavs. And not only do they win 3 games in a 4-game series for the first time since 2017, going to ignore that stat for a second there. Overall, they had a great weekend offensively.
Yes.
Like really, really good. Started off on the first game on Friday, 20-3, end up winning that one. They score 10 runs in their next game, unfortunately lose 14-10, but then score 8 runs and then 7 runs to an 8-5 and 7-3. They score, 45 runs on the weekend, which is pretty darn impressive throughout that stretch. And yeah, they lost that one on Friday afternoon. But that being said, they took 3 out of 4. And man, did this team need that series over William Jewell in Liberty, Missouri, because those are their first 3 wins on the year. The Beavers are now 3-9 on the campaign, 0-3 in conference play. They lost their 4-game set to Rockhurst, where things weren't necessarily close. This Beaver offense, though, has been scoring since that opening series against Augustana. Scored 7 runs in a loss, 6 runs in a loss, and then 10 runs in back-to-back games. So as much as the pitching hasn't quite lived up to their end yet, the Beaver offense has been humming to start the season.
100%. Series against Augustana be damned. The Rockers series, college baseball does have a little bit more high scoring than, an MLB game.
Right, because the pitching in majors is just
right. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And so, you don't really scoff when you see a 6-10 scoreline the same way you would if that was the Twins Tigers or something, it'd be like, whoa, that's really high scoring. But yeah, the series against Rockhurst, 7-15, you don't want to sit here and say oh, that's a pretty good game. They were competitive, they lost by 8 runs. But then, 6-10, I've seen worse scores than that. And then 10-12 and 10-11, the next 2 games against team that's receiving votes, in Rockhurst. Yes, the pitching could have been better. Maybe you don't give up 12 and 11 runs and you win those games. Anytime you probably score double-digit runs and lose is upsetting. But again, it's inspiring to see they're not losing by 5+ runs in these games. That's 3 straight games of losing by less than 5 runs. And then you come in, and my reaction when I see the final score of 20-3 against William Jewell was something out of a cartoon. I had the Tom and Jerry, my eyes are popping out of my head and my jaw is dropping the blinds that are rolling up. And I was astonished to see that. And then not only that, but it wasn't just a 1-game flash in the pan type thing. They continued the offense all series long and were able to pick up a couple of good wins against William Jewell. Keep in mind, CJ, obviously college sports changes a lot in just one season. It's not necessarily a fair comparison to last season's team for either of these, but this is a team in William Jewell that last year you lost 2-11, 12-23, 1-10, and 6-9 in a 4-game series. And now you're able to flip that on its head and win your season series, win the season series with William Jewell 3-1, and take some of that momentum now into conference play, where I don't know, expectations are kind of, again, maybe it's unfair. Historically, we've talked ad nauseum again about BSU baseball and the shortcomings that they've had and the disadvantages geographically and everything else. But now I've got my hopes up. You want to talk crazy about women's hoops next year. Men's baseball could do it this year. They might be national champions this year, CJ. I'm kidding. That's unfair. That's unfair. But I am now excited to follow this team a little bit more closely than I have in years past, going into conference play. And why does it feel like every year with baseball, CJ, the end of the year, they put together like 2 series where it's like they just won like 3 games out of 7 to end the season, or 3 games out of 6 to end the season. Like, they could have just done that a little bit more consistently during the season. Like,
right. They could have found some way just to help us out.
I feel like I swear to God, it's been like 2 years in a row where at the end of the season, they like double their win total in the final 2 weeks of the year. And it's like, all right, maybe I'm looking forward to next year. So we'll see. Either way,
get a chance to prove some conference games. They have a 4-game set this weekend against Northern coming up. 3 of those games are going to be NSIC games. The game on Friday afternoon, a doubleheader on Saturday, and then the final game on Sunday will not count for the conference standings. But it's all going to be played in Sioux Falls at Ronkin Field against Northern. Technically, these are home games, I think, is how this is setting out. I think they are technically away games, but it's neutral site. So
it says versus on the schedule.
Yeah, but like this is a very weird distinction. But when you go down lower, it says versus, but it's green. So I'm not sure how that all works out.
So there's color involved.
It's
now our communications majors are overmatched. When you start getting into color, it's
you ever see
the letters?
I
understand the color. That's
you ever
confusing.
see those posts on Instagram where it's like business majors doing their homework and it's just like put the shapes in the right spot? It's like, oh man, that's just me. That was just me doing extra work on my own. Darn it. Dang it. But anyway, I mean, when you look at BSU's offense right now, overall, it's being led by Noah Drush, who has an OPS of 1100, which is pretty darn good, a 297 batting average, 4 home runs on the year, 9 RBIs. His 4 home runs do lead the Beavers throughout the first handful of games of the season. And Bo Toma has 10 RBIs to lead this part for BSU as well. And just again, it's a really good sign for the Beavers that they can just get some offense going here early in the season, especially in these colder weather games, more relatively speaking. So, and also, by the way, big shout out to Nash Rubens, who's 9 of 10 for stolen bases on the year. So BSU's getting it done here so far. We'll see as we get going. Again, pitching is going to be the big thing to keep an eye on. But again, overall, we'll see how this works out for the Beavers once they get going along the season. But right now their offense is rolling, and we'll take it while we can get it. So as we move on over to spring sports for the women's teams, let's talk a little softball. Bemidji State got to compete over the weekend in Kansas at the Shawnee for the Top Gun Midwest College Classic. They got a win against Newman University 10-3, then lost 9-3, 7-0, and 6-1 to Washburn, Missouri Western, and Central Missouri. They had games against Emporia State and Fort Hays that got canceled, I'm going to guess due to weather. And now they move on to the Space Coast Spring Games in Melbourne, Florida at the USSSA Space Coast Complex. They play Cedarville, Southern New Hampshire, Roosevelt, Salem, Thomas More, Bentley, Goldie Beacom College, DeUville University, D''Uville, Malone University and the University of Indianapolis. They're just making up school names, right?
These are fake.
There's no way these are real,
They
right?
got fucking SNHU on the schedule, and now Deauville Athletics.
Deauville. Is it over by Deauville? No, it's over by Demiville, actually.
I'm gonna do a little research on this while we're
these can't possibly be real. Anyway, so for softball again, they have a 3-11 start to the season, lost 3 in a row. They're just trying to get some positive momentum and build things back up here. And the biggest thing has really been the offense and just that consistent run creation. The bats have been a little stagnant, and in a game like softball compared to baseball, you expect that offense to just pick up a little bit more, considering that the bats are bigger, the ball's bigger, the bases are shorter, the fields are smaller. It's just a game that lends itself to a little bit more offense. And Bemidji State just hasn't quite been able to get that part of their game going. And we'll see if they can get that turned around over the next couple weeks. Again, down in Florida, weather's warm, ball carries, and hopefully a good opportunity for their offense before they have their first home game of the season at the end of the month on March 21st. So, all right, looking over to our
Deauville, by the way, in Buffalo, New York. It's a private school. Founded in 1909 and named by the Grey Nuns after the patroness saint Marie Marguerite Deauville.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right.
Apparently, somebody went out of their way to create a website for this university and a Wikipedia page. All right, man.
The conspiracy only grows deeper.
Yeah.
It goes even further than I thought.
We'll get to the bottom of this.
We'll get to the bottom of it. We'll figure it out. Hey, wrapping things up, the NSIC Indoor Championships took place over the weekend, Friday and Saturday in Mankato. And the Beavers grabbed the first NSIC individual championship win since 2021. Sophie Rylance has made this season her own, according to bsubeavers.com, with personal best, school, and facility records. And the sophomore earned the Beavers' first individual conference event win since 2021. Rylance qualified for the 1,000-meter run with a time of 3:03.28, then pushed to the front with a personal best of 2:55.85. This was the first time the Beaver has taken the title in the event. With the win, Rylance also earned all NSIC honors. Jada Gayson also ran the 1,000 meters, setting a personal best and finishing 12th in the prelims. Maggie McCarthy rounded out the individual track efforts for BSU, finishing 19th in the 3,000 meter with a season best time of 10:31.37. So again, there's the full write-up here, but for Bemidji State, their season wraps up here on the indoor season, and they now will focus to the outdoor meets if they have any that end up coming on the schedule here at this point. They usually take a little break, and then kind of towards that end of the month, once everybody gets back from spring break, usually will kind of turn their attention to the outdoor season. So congratulations to her for that. Ian, as we go around the horn here, tennis did lose, unfortunately, to Augustana, to Sioux Falls, to North Dakota, losing all those matches 0-7, but then came back over the weekend, got a 6-1 victory against River Falls, and then against Minnesota Morris 7-0 to bounce right back. And I think you knew Augustana was going to be tough. UND being a D1 program was going to be tough. But once they got past that, it was basically like, okay, like they're going to get some bounce back opportunities against River Falls and Minnesota Morris. And it's at the Gillette, it's at BSU. And for them to get those wins, just important to get back on track, especially now that they kind of have about a month-long break.
Yeah, not back in action until March 20th and 21st, 3 weeks from, their last game. And then they'll have 3 weeks left of the regular season to try to get into the NSIC tournament for the first time in a while. They'll wrap up the season with 6 matches: Minnesota Crookston, MSU Moorhead, Winona State, Minnesota State, UMary, and Jamestown. So about 3 weeks from now, we'll be touching more on tennis. And then, of course, for all the golf fans out there, pay attention to golf. They start next Monday and Tuesday. The men's team is at the Maverick Desert Classic in Goodyear, Arizona, and the women's team will be in Litchfield Park, Arizona at the SMSU Spring Invitational. Again, that's also Monday and Tuesday of next week. So I'm sure we'll have some results of some events.
And not only
next
that,
weekend.
they'll be there at the end of the week as well, because there's the invitational and then there's the spring challenge, at least for women's, because then Thursday and Friday they're there. I mean, if you're going to go down there, you might as well golf again. You know, if you have to go down to Arizona to be on the golf team, you may as well just do another day out of it.
Yeah.
Dang. I wish I was good at golf, man.
Catch.
Just in general, I wish I was good at golf, but also to be a collegiate golfer, just to be able to go down there and just chill. That'd be cool.
Well, that's what they always tell you, right? They're like, you don't have to be good at golf to go play. And I'm like, do you know me? Do you know that I'll throw my club into the pond on hole 9 if I
be that Family Guy bit? Just be like, get in the game, Glenn.
Yeah, exactly. That would be me, man. That would be me as I'm, shooting a 150 on a, 72. So
it'll be me once again shanking my drive into the field, yelling obscenities while somebody's trying to just have a nice day out with their children.
Yep.
That'll be it.
This is what the real world looks like. There's failures everywhere.
Failures everywhere. You think you're going to be good at anything? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, too bad.
That's a bad dream. I'm just thinking of the Anchorman.
It's a bad dream. Yeah.
When I don't know, his kid wants to be like a spaceman or something. He's like, you should settle for being a janitor. Just pick something. I can't remember. Now I just want to watch Anchorman. So, all right.
Next week's show, we'll be reacting live to Anchorman.
Yeah, next week if the Beaver men's hockey team loses, we're not even breaking it down. We're just gonna be too sad. It'll just be us live watching Anchorman 2, except it's not even gonna be like you can't even see the movie because for copyright reasons.
Our reaction.
It'll just be us watching it like we're a dang Barstool watch party. So,
we'll tell you when to start the movie.
Yeah.
And then you can watch it on your own TV and listen and kind of listen to our live reaction and breakdown.
This show got off the rails a little bit, but it's okay.
We've been off the rails for like 30 minutes, dude. It's
I don't know how to tell you. I am blind.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
That's pretty much it. Go watch Anchorman 2. It's not great, but it is funny. It's not Anchorman 1, but it will certainly get some good laughs out of you. So,
conveniently
not as iconic,
enough,
but it's good.
Not great, but funny is how my wife describes me. So to end the show on that note, we'll get out of here.
This is the Beaver Banter podcast. Let's roll Beavs. Let's go beat Auggie so we can just if they win, we'll just spend the whole episode just talking about how it's 2 G's.
2 G's.
When you abbreviate Auggie, not 1. And if you're confused by that, follow Beaver Banter on Twitter. Follow the Beaver Banter Discord. Join in. It's going to be great for playoffs. Hop on the bandwagon. It'll be a fun time. We'll see you guys. Have a good one.